Hey friends, my name is Yi and you're watching Yi Makes It Easy. And welcome to a new video for IGCSE and Maths. And today we have sketching graphs for rules and examples, or more like examples or how to sketch a graph. And in our next lesson we'll look into questions for sketching graphs and what to sketch. And we'll move on to some basics of sketching graph. But before we get into it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Let's get into some key terms and basics. So polynomial. Polynomial is an expression which is composed of variables, constants, and exponents. Number 2, degree. Degree is the highest of the degrees of the polynomials, or like individual terms with non-zero coefficient. For example, in the equation of x squared plus 2, because x squared has like a power of 2, which means that the degree of this equation is the degree of 2. And for x cubed plus 2, because x cubed is 3, so it's a degree of 3. So you can see here, let's just zoom in, x squared, and this, and x cubed of this. So now we have this maximum turning point. The amount of maximum turning point in a graph is the power of polynomial, or the degree, minus 1. For example, in an x cubed graph, it has a maximum turning point of 2, because the power of polynomial, or the degree, is 3 minus 1 is 2, right here. So now we have how to sketch a quadratic or parabola graph. So here's what to find and draw for a quadratic graph. Number 1, find the roots or the x-intercepts. So we have, let's say if we have x squared plus 2x plus 1, you have to find the root of the equation. If it's equal y, find the roots or the x-intercepts of the equation by setting y to 0. So y will be 0, and basically factorize the equation to get like x plus 1, and then you get the root of x minus 1, you get a root of x equals to minus 1. Number 2, find the minimum or the maximum point. And what you can do is that you can use completing the square to get like a form, like an equation where you've done completing the square, where it's like this, where it's x plus a squared plus b, and the maximum or the minimum turning point will be minus a, b. And of course you can use differentiation for this, but we haven't learned differentiation here, so just don't worry about it. And number 3, find the y-intercept using x equals 0. So as I said, when you have the equation x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals y, to find the y-intercept, you have to set x equals 0, so x equals 0 will be 0 squared plus 2, 0 plus 1 equals y. Therefore the y-intercept will be y equals 1. So the difference between x-intercepts and y-intercepts is that x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. So let's say this is the x-intercept. Let's just write it in a new color. This is called x-intercept, or the roots. And this point right here in a new color, this point right here is the y-intercept. Or in a normal equation, y equals mx plus c, it's this c part right here. And then we have more information for quadratic graphs. So as I said just now, how to draw a quadratic graph. And here we have an example for a quadratic graph, a positive one. As you can see, y equals x squared right here, and y equals x minus 1 squared. So here's the difference between positive and negative graph. For a positive quadratic graph, it will be like a U shape, and a negative one will be an N shape almost. So just think of it like this: if someone is positive, they'll be happy, so it'll be like a smile, you know. And if it's negative, they'll be sad, so it's almost like a sad face. And then we have sketching cubic graphs, which is to the power of a degree of 3. So here's what to find and draw for a cubic graph. It's very similar to a quadratic graph. So number 1, you find the roots or the x-intercepts, as I said. So in this case, on the left, we have this x-intercept of x equals minus 3, x equals 1, and x equals 2. So therefore, we can deduce this equation by x plus 3, x minus 2, and x minus 1. And number 2, find the minimum or maximum point. So you can't really do completing the square on a cubic equation. So what we have to do is that we have to find the derivative of fx, which is basically a differentiation, which you haven't learned, so don't worry about finding the maximum or minimum point for cubic graphs. But if you want to do further reading or further study, what you have to do to find the minimum or maximum point or points for a cubic graph is that you find the derivative or like differentiate the equation, the cubic equation, like f of x, to get this differentiation, like derivative function, and find the root, then the y values, the corresponding y values from the original equation. And then number 3, find the y-intercept using x equals 0 as I mentioned. So like this would be the y-intercept because y would be 6. So a quick and easy way to find the y-intercept is that when you have this like breakdown equation, the y-intercept is basically x equals 0, or you can times all these values right here, you can times minus 2, and times 3, times minus 1. So minus 2 times 3 is minus 6, and minus 6 times minus 1 is 6, which is basically 6. And it's a cool trick to know. So we have some examples and we have the answers next slide, but let's try to do some question first. So plot y equals x squared plus 2x minus 35. So we can't really use like a graph, so I'll just hand sketch it. So first we have to find two roots. So first off, we know that the y-intercept is minus 35. So y-intercept is 0 minus 35. So it would be like, let's say this, okay, minus 35. Number 2, find the maximum or minimum point. So we can do completing a square to find this, or I can just use differentiation. And if I do differentiation, or if you do completing a square, you get, let's see, minus max or min. It will be minus 1. And if you put minus 1 into the equation, you'll get, let me just put it in my calculator, minus 1 squared is 1, and 1 minus 2 minus 35. It will be minus 36. So we know that this y-intercept here isn't the maximum or minimum point. It's around here. Let's set this point right here. And then we have to find the root of the equation. So we need to put this into the quadratic formula, which is basically x equals minus b plus minus b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And you can just put this into a calculator, but I don't have mine right now, so I only have my phone's calculator. So let's just do this the long way. B squared will be 4 minus 4a minus 35. So the answer would be 4 minus 4 times 1 times minus 35. 4 times 35 will be 140. So it will be 4 plus 140, which is 144. Over 2a, 2 times is this. So you could just simplify this to become, let's see, minus 2 plus minus 4. So 144 divided by 4 will get us 36, which is basically a whole number, like 6, because we know that root 144 equals 12. So let's actually just do that. So it will be plus minus 12 over 2, which will get us minus 1 plus or minus 6. And actually, you don't even need a calculator, because I didn't realize it's that simple. And this gets us minus 7 and 5. And you didn't even need a calculator because it's not a super hard one, and I didn't realize that. So the roots are x equals minus 7 and x equals 5. So let's just plot it here. Let's say here's minus 7. Actually, let's just redraw this, because I just realized that I can make a straight line on this app. And I just realized that. Ooh. Right, so x equals minus 7 and x equals 5. Maximum point of 35 minus 35. And this point right here is minus 36. So here is minus 1. So we know that the basic shape of the graph is a U shape because it's a positive graph, and it crosses through minus 7 and 5 as a root, and it crosses the minimum point here in minus 1, minus 36, right here, and the y-intercept is at minus 35. And the basic shape of this graph would be, let me just rub this out so that we can just manipulate the y-intercept. So it will be something, something like this, like so. Ooh. Just redraw the curve down here, and here, and so, and this point here would be minus 35. Whoops. Minus 35. So this minimum point is minus 1, minus 35. This point right here is minus 7, 0. This point right here is 5, 0. And this point right here is 0, minus 35. And that's how you plot a curve. So this is just a better answer of what I drew. So we have this minus 7 as a root, minus 7, minus 5. And then we have 2 points right here. The minimum point is minus 1, minus 36. And the y-intercept of 0, minus 35. And this is from Desmos. Oops. Desmos. And lastly, we have this sketching graph. Plot y equals x cubed minus 4x squared plus minus 12x. So number one, you factorize this to become around, you can just factorize x out of everything. So it will be x squared minus 4x minus 12. And this can be further breakdown by doing x minus 6 and x plus 2. 6x plus 2 equals 0. Therefore, the roots are x equals 0, x equals 6, and x equals minus 2. So let's draw a basic graph. This. So x equals 0, run it here, x equals minus 2, run it here, and x equals 6. So we have to find, we can't, because this is just an introduction video or like a questions video, we haven't done differentiation. So I'll just ignore the minimum or the maximum point. And we know that the y-intercept is when you set x equals 0. In this case, there's no like y-intercept, like there's no like c, it's this c value right here. So we know that the y-intercept is just this point right here at x equals 0. And therefore the shape of the cubic graph will look something like this. Where here we have the root of minus 2, 0. Here we have, 0, 0. And here we have 6, 0, 6, 0, 6, 0, minus 2. And just a quick note for the positive and negative graph for a cubic equation. A positive would be something like this. It will be like it's just like a rough sketch, a degree of 3. Positive and negative look something like going down the stairs. And that's it for this rules and examples video for sketching graphs, where we look into sketching quadratic and cubic graph, and it's quite interesting and it might be confusing for some of you. So if you have any questions, share them in the comment section. And I hope you all find it useful and helpful, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you have any comments or constructive feedbacks about my channel or website or videos, just drop that in the comment section and I'll reply to them. And check my social media in the description for more content, for example LinkedIn or Instagram. Or check out my website if you need any resources or lesson slides or any teaching resources. Or you can type it out in your browser at www.MakesItEasy.com. And I hope you all find it useful and helpful, and I'll see you all in the next video, which will be questions for sketching graphs. And until then, stay safe and happy learning.